about just the differences between like having to run a game studio and having this idea of building this idea?
It's very hard. It's been nice because I already have these big names behind me, so it's been easier to get people to engage with me.
Well, it's who you know sometimes, right? Especially in that industry.
Yeah, it's totally, yeah. We spend a lot of time on the game, right, obviously, but we also spend a lot of time with hiring. We hire contractors, or we have to pay them, or we have to like automate something. We have to meet to align on stuff. We have to make all the spreadsheets. We have to make gameplay tools. So there's just a lot more to do.
All right, welcome to the Everybody Has a Podcast. My name is Marco Santana, and today we are being joined by Alexia Mandeville. Alexia, welcome to the show. Now, you have a great background in gaming, which we're going to get into today. But first of all, welcome to the show. I appreciate you jumping on here.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm super excited to talk about games in Orlando. Love Orlando.
Yeah, because you're based out of, you just told me you're based out of San Antonio and been there for several years, but you were a long time Orlando tech scene observer, or you went to UCF for several years. Talk about your Orlando background here real quick.
Yeah, so I am from Florida. I was born in Cape Canaveral, and then I lived on the Space Coast most of my life, but then I moved to Orlando for college. I went to UCF, and I was there for, I think it was 8 years.
Okay.
And I worked at IST, the Institute for Simulation and Training, right on the end of my bachelor's degree, which was digital media game design at UCF. And then I got my master's at the Institute for Simulation and Training as well for modeling and simulation. And I really loved the gaming community there because there's, as you know, there's just like a ton of technology and simulations and training. Went to Indienomicon, went to some global game jams. Peter Smith was super involved and
and I apologize for running, but it's funny now that you mentioned Indienomicon. Now I remember where we met.
Oh, we met there?
Yeah, I was involved Kunal was a really close friend of me. So anyway, go on. Peter Smith.
I was going to mention Kunal as well because there was like the game space that he had with a bunch of indie developers, and I would go there to hang out with some friends. Justin, I forget his last name, and I know Sean Pinnock. I still talk to Sean of Avalon. So there's like a really great community there. I don't have the same community in Texas as I did there, for sure, but it was all connected through UCF.
Well, it's funny because you're mentioning it, and anyone who listens to this and is not from Orlando doesn't really understand that there is a really big simulation and training. And it's funny because as you're in it, like I'm in it, and you were in it, you don't think about it, but like everyone else outside has no idea. They still think we're Mickey Mouse. Don't get me wrong. The theme parks are huge here and a big part of the economy. But, there's a lot. There's $1 billion contracts being worked on here in Orlando. So there's a lot going on here when it comes to that stuff.
Yeah, I was working at E2I Creative Studio in IST, and we were doing contracts for Schlumberger, the oil company in Texas, like $1 million contracts. We were doing smaller contracts for like the Orlando Science Center. We worked with DoD, Department of Defense. We worked with a bunch of people that were just making simulations, like the fire department for training firefighters.
Right, and there's that secret sauce for the DoD. If you get that clearance, you're in a huge market here in Orlando.
Yeah.
So what took you down out there? And you were here roughly how long? 8 years ish, you said?
8 years, and then I got my master's, and I popped down to South America for a bit just to take a break. But I got a job in...
Like you do.
Yeah. I got a job in Silicon Valley working as a prototyper for haptics and gaming. Just that whole area right by UCF and like by Full Sail, it's just like startups central.
Oh yeah, and you don't even know, like but I'm saying in general, you're driving by these big, like these great companies that could become the next Lockheed Martins or whatever. Just to use one of the giants around here. But there's a lot of potential in that's the thing. Like the industries that there's a lot of potential in, I feel Orlando does really well at. So But I'm not here to talk about Orlando. You're not in Orlando anymore, so it's hard not to sometimes. But
Yeah.
talk a little about the scene out in Texas. You had mentioned there's not a lot of gaming, but how's it? But they have a good tech scene out there. They have to, right?
Yeah, in Austin, it's pretty.
Yeah,
There's a big community. There's like ATX game makers. I'm not gonna lie, I haven't been super involved in the communities
sure.
while I was here because I came here during the pandemic and everybody was
Mm,
quarantining. I have met a few people here off of LinkedIn that are like they've been in the game industry for quite a while,
yeah.
but I was more involved in like the VR community in Silicon Valley. There was obviously like a really good community there when I was working at Facebook or Meta, whatever you want to call it.
Hmm.
Um, that was like the heyday of right after they bought Oculus, and then we were just making
Right.
Horizon and doing a lot of prototyping. I worked with Philip Rosedale, who made Second Life on his VR
Right.
platform.
Wow.
It was super fun. It was great.
But we're definitely listen. We're definitely going to dig into that. I'm excited to get a little bit of insight on that. But one thing I want to ask though is like when you are, coming from, and again, I'm not going to talk up Orlando too much. I mean, even though I enjoy it, but when you come from the community like this, and then go to a community like where you are trying to almost find your own startup scene, what's that kind of like? The differences there. I suppose I'm sure there's some challenges, but what kind of things are you doing to try to like get over those challenges, or you just go heads down on what you're building.
Yeah, so one of the reasons why I haven't been super involved in the community in Texas is because I've been so involved online, and it's
Mm,
really just a grind to get like you can make a game, you can make it really good, but a lot of the effort is in marketing.
right.
And when I talk to people about making games, it's like if you're going to be an indie, you have to spend 1 hour on your game and then 1 hour marketing your game. So that's like ads or social media or just like
Right.
promoting yourself or going on podcasts.
And oh, by the way, this is pre-revenue. Right.
Yeah, so it's just a grind, and the internet is like a conference that's 24/7. So LinkedIn is obviously huge right now because of all the layoffs. But
Well,
um,
tell me about the gaming. Tell me about the game. The gaming. I've never built a video game, but I've played so many. I swear to God, I'm using this. I'm saying this too many times. Like every episode, almost. I'm saying I'm the dumb guy who talks to smart people. But that's what I'm saying. Like I don't build a video game, but I can play the hell out of it. What got you into it? Just talk about your career a little bit and getting into this. Because like I said, I love video games. Never thought I never made a career out of it though. But you are. So talk about that whole transition from gamer to game builder.
so it started at UCF and
Mm,
in digital media, and I had dabbled with some things. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I was in like chemistry because my parents are pharmacists, and then I tried some other
mhm.
degrees, but it wasn't working out. So I was like, oh, digital media looks really fun. So I went down that route, and it's art and technology. So that
So you
is,
weren't necessarily like a gamer as a child. You just as you were there, you're like that looks interesting.
oh, no, I was a gamer. Sorry.
Oh,
I
okay.
played The
Okay.
Sims. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The Sims were like of my era. Neopets, cats and dogs, Myst. I played Myst with my grandpa all the time. I just think it's a given that a lot of people are gamers. So I'm playing
Right. Well,
Balatro
no,
right
no, no. Listen, I agree with you, but I like to talk about like the transition from me as a consumer, and then one day it sparked saying I want to build it. So you were talking about that. I might have interrupted you too soon, but anyway, yeah, go on anyway. So you transitioned from being a gamer to actually building.
now. Yeah. There's just something about games that it's art and tech, and you
Yeah,
are really just using the tech to facilitate the artwork.
yeah.
And it's really just a means to the interactions and the gameplay. So it felt like I was always in Photoshop and making artwork, and it kind of just felt like a really easy transition. And I grew up in
Hmm.
dial up and when web pages were being spun up, making web pages and trying to make art with web pages. So it kind of it just felt right. So
Hmm.
then I was working on games in undergrad, and it was just super fun and nice to be around people who are also interested in the art aspects of it, not just like the utility of software.
Well, and that's the thing. I think what I love about just the gaming industry in general. especially today. It's and listen, I'm not breaking new ground here saying they're more like movies and games, right? They're interactive movies, and I'm not the first one to say that, but I've loved movies forever, man, and I love playing Zelda. That wasn't a game, or pardon me, that wasn't a movie. That was just little sprites you could move around. Um, but then once we got to this era of real immersion and real, like, even some of these story games, uh, are just like the choose your own. It's like choose your own adventure from way back in the day, but just like interactive and digital. And it's like I adore the gaming industry and where it's going. What's it been like for you? Kind of again, and I hate to keep saying similar question, but I do love the perspective of like as loving something, and all of a sudden you can actually build and actually be a part of. You worked on, like you said, with Meta slash Facebook slash whatever they're going to name it next. But you worked on these things. You worked on the Neopets, right? You worked on these things or Niantic, sorry, Niantic, and some of these things that became very high level for consumer. Consumers loved it. What's that like for you to kind of create that stuff now instead of just consuming it?
I so working on things at scale is super fun because you learn
Yeah.
so much, and I just love to learn and like be curious about things. But I'll go back to I was really interested during school in bridging like the physical and the virtual realities. So I was
Mm-hmm.
really interested in ARGs, which are alternate reality games, or like AR location based games like Pokemon Go or Ingress.
Right.
And so that's what I did my master's degree in. And I was like, I really want to go work at Niantic. And I was working in VR in Orlando as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't get into Niantic at first. It took me a couple of years to get there. So I went over to Facebook and just working in a space where you have to consider the physical world as well as the virtual world is a really interesting.
I love how you just casually said, "Oh, Facebook was my backup plan."
Well, I mean, I just
I'm
really
kidding. I'm
wanted to go
kidding.
to Niantic. It was like my
Right.
dream company. I was like, I'm
Yeah.
gonna work there. So when I was in Orlando, we did this installation at the Orlando Science Center of the 4 levels, and you have it was kind of like a Pokemon Go style game where you collect fish in
Oh,
the
okay.
physical 4 levels. So that was a really fun problem to solve, and just having, like I said, the physical space is like a really interesting thing to overcome because you have to think about the safety of people and you have to think about
Hmm.
the physical objects that are there. So it was just a fun space to work in.
Yeah. So and that's a great thing. Like I think obviously when you have something huge, like Pokemon Go, there are these they call these clones that come up, right? And a lot of times they are way like very local, hyper local, to where but you're able to hone your skills on these hyper local projects. I know, like one of our mutual friend Kunal as well, right? Like talking a little bit about this, is they've done a lot of really cool projects as a small little outfit, but they do kind of replicate some of the bigger things. They have a lot more marketability, I guess, or maybe better marketing, as you were saying earlier. Can you talk a little bit about just the growth of the industry and how you've been able to contribute to it? Just seeing like more people, adopting and really coming around to the fact that these kind of technologies are here to stay. Whether they hit the most ambitious numbers, we'll never know. We won't know for a while. But a lot of these technologies are here as a game around them. So I'm so glad they're here. But talk about that a little bit. Just the technology that you've worked with and seeing them. Because I imagine every 6 months you have to reassess and see what's
Oh yeah,
new.
yeah, yeah. Going back to the scale thing too, like working
Yeah.
at Niantic and dealing with, I didn't work on Pokemon Go, so I worked on Peridot, which was
Right.
it was a 0 to 1 game. And figuring out how to scale that in terms of marketing and then also like marketability and then the tools that you need to actually implement that is really interesting, because you have to make tools like Pokemon Go. I'll just use that as a better
Mm.
example. because everybody knows that. Has
Sure,
all the
sure, sure.
data in it about Pokemon and, Pokeballs and items and whatnot. And where does that data live? It lives in the game. So you have like a game master template editor with spreadsheets of information, and you have live events that you have to manage. And they got to this global scale by, iterating on it over 10 years or so at this point. But that's been a really fun thing to do, to create tools to make it more scalable and just larger globally.
Joe, tell me a little for you as far as your specific career path, where you are now. You have a game studio now. Talk about just the differences between like having to run a game studio and having this idea, building this idea. I know a few guys here locally who came from Hollywood and Weta and all those big studios to come local to build this game studio here. What's that like for you to kind of be building that studio and just being on that side of everything?
Like indie versus corporation.
Yeah, yeah. Trying to break in versus like, you have a spot at this
It,
big
yeah,
company.
it's very hard. It's been nice because I already have these big names behind me, so it's been easier to get people to engage with me.
Well, it's who you know sometimes, right? Especially in that industry.
Yes, totally,
Yeah.
yeah. So I've been able to get like press articles about our games, or just like people to like retweet our stuff. So that's been nice.
Hmm.
But we spend a lot of time on the game, right? Obviously, but we also spend a lot of time with hiring. We hire contractors, or
Right.
we pay them, or we have to like automate something. We have to meet to align on stuff. We have to make all the spreadsheets. We have to make gameplay tools. So there's just a lot more to do than I was a game designer, the game lead at Niantic. Like I was doing a lot, but I wasn't doing any of the marketing. We had marketing people for
Hmm.
that.
Right,
We
right.
had people to write emails, to write newsletters. We had people to run ads, but like right now, like I'm running ads. I'm writing
Hmm.
those emails.
Yeah.
I'm formatting those emails. I'm making the website. I'm paying the people. I'm doing a lot more, and it's really rewarding. I absolutely love it, and I don't think that I would change it for the time being. But there's just a lot more to do, and I
Yeah.
think that you often work a lot more because you're working for yourself and you're working for like your own
How big
vision.
of a team do you have?
Well, it's just me and Bo. We had
Yeah.
4 people work on Grift, which is one of our most recent games. So there was a social media person, an artist, me, and then Bo.
Hmm.
And then for chief emoji officer, it was just me and Bo. We didn't outsource anything for that because that was a really short game.
Right.
And then we hired an intern this last semester to work on some social media stuff and some concepting for our new game that we're working on. So it's kind of like pick and choose people when we need something
Right.
for like a specific task.
Well, it's funny because I think I have so much fondness for the game industry, and I think a lot of people out there do. It's hard to to break it down to the basics where you guys are very much a startup, just like just any other kind of startup business. Yeah, you're doing cool shit, but you're still going through the same pitfall struggles, ups and downs that startups go through.
Yeah.
Tell me about just is there something you can tell me just in the last or just in your experience that where you were like, oh, that's right, we're a startup. We have to figure this out on our own. I mean, like, what kind of things have you run into where, you'd be going all full, 100% toward the goal, but then, oh wait, this came up because we're a startup.
Um, Probably just marketing. Like
Yeah,
distribution and marketing. Distribution is not an issue, but it's if you're releasing on Steam, you have a whole set of analytics that you have to look at and features for analytics that could help you. And then if you're
right.
on
There's
iOS,
so much competition on Steam too.
yes, and you have to prepare for
Insane.
events like there's Steam Next Fest
Yeah.
twice a year or so. And we built one of our demos to Steam Next Fest, which was very smart of us because we got a lot of
Yeah.
wishes.
Cool.
So I would recommend doing that. But it's really just the marketing part of it. Like, we know how to make games. We're very confident in how we make games and like our process. It's just
Yeah.
when it comes to the marketing, I read this blog called howtomarketagame.com. I
Okay.
love it. It's so specific. But it's really just like, see where you can get the best return and then stick with that, like double down on it as much as possible.
There are so many game fests nowadays too that you have to pick the right one, which one's gonna be worth it, which one's not gonna do shit. I imagine where you are, you look at South by Southwest as often as you can, figuring out where you can align with that. Can you talk about just the I love the movie Three Amigos. Scam, there's a plethora of these. That's an old man reference, by the way. But there's so many game, so many game fest. How do you pick and choose?
I so I haven't gone to conferences because it's a lot of money to
Yeah,
go.
right.
You got the plane ticket and the ticket costs and whatever and the time. So we've really just been doing the second best thing, which is just like influencers and social
Yeah,
media and ads.
that's such a 2024 marketing strategy, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
Influence. I love that.
yes. So I really just I try to do all of those things, and then if something sticks and something is working, then I just cut out the rest and I double down on that specific
Mm,
thing. So like I developed a spreadsheet of all of these press people that I wanted to email when our game was
right.
launching. So
The strategy.
it was probably like 100 people, which is not
Yeah.
much in the first game. So I emailed everybody. We got like a 5% return of like people who posted. So I was like, that's not bad. Just judging. My friend works at a grocery store here, and she was like, that's actually not that bad. That's like what our return is for grocery
Yeah.
vendors. So I was
Interesting.
like, cool, I'm going to keep doing that. I'm going to develop an even longer list. So then I paid somebody to help me develop that list because it takes a lot of time to either like web scrape for
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
people or like automate web scraping or like just find these people that are a good fit for your audience and just double down on it. Send out
That
as
and
much.
that you know what I love about what you're talking about. I mean, you're figuring it out as you go, right? I mean, there's no playbook here. And I think that is quintessential startup. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where you don't something comes up. The industry doesn't care. You need to figure it out. Either figure it out or you move on to your next headache, right? Um,
Also, if you fail at something, people will not remember. So just
mhm,
keep trying to succeed at it, and you've
yeah,
learned from your failure. A lot of what works for indies, like the things that I learned at Facebook and Niantic, like that stuff is not going to work for me because they just have
yeah,
money to throw at it, and I
right,
don't
right,
have
right.
money. Yeah.
What can you take from your experience though at Facebook and at Niantic? What did you take? I mean, I imagine working at that kind of level of a company, there's a give and take. Right, on the one hand, you're able to work on cool shit. On the other hand, like you said, there's a lot of people doing this. You're the volume, the numbers are so big that maybe you don't get to touch as many uh, levels of what you're trying to build. What did you take from either or both of those experiences?
Yes. The one thing I took from Facebook is all about social media, obviously. So I went that we have this workplace thing at Facebook that's like Facebook but for work. And I was followed by a lot of people. I went trending in that workplace because of some of the stuff that I made, and it was highly visual and it was just like bright and colorful and fun. So people engaged with that because they knew about it. And what I took from Facebook is like, you have a lot of influence into your community if you are good at social media and can
Yeah.
get people engaged in your stuff. So like, if you can influence people into engaging with your product, you can get a lot of feedback on your product and then iterate a lot faster. That's what I
I
took from.
imagine. I imagine also, and this may be a low hanging fruit or a cheap one, but the network's got to be amazing. Like for people that you meet there who now then
Oh,
move on
yeah.
to do their own thing. I imagine your network reaches to some levels you never imagined it would.
Yeah, I worked with hundreds of people. I worked on only like one large org, which was like 150 people.
Hmm.
But all of those people have since left Facebook. I think it's been like 6 years since I worked there, and like they all went
Yeah.
to separate companies. And I can like
Right.
hit them up because we're still friends and be like, hey, can you like help me with this? You want to chat, whatever, you want to hang out. and they all have different experiences at these new companies that I can learn from.
Talk about that a little bit, just the importance of networking in your industry, and yeah, just some of the benefits of having been in Orlando, for instance.
I still connect with people that I worked with there, and
Mm.
we still collaborate and stuff. I would always consider going back to Orlando to work on stuff, and I think that I would have a home there. And that's really just because I did so much networking, and I said yes to probably too much when I was in undergrad and graduate school, and that's why I needed to go to South America and take a break. But
Right,
um,
right.
so I worked with a ton of people there as well, and they all have these like little, not, I don't mean to say little, but like
Yeah.
smaller communities, micro communities within the larger community, whether it's indie or military or army or whatnot. But just I assume once you get to like a age in your career, you end up with a larger network. But
Yeah.
if you aren't actually putting yourself out there, you might not get to that larger network. It just gives you a lot more options.
Why did you decide to go on your own to try to start your own studio rather than continue to try and find employment within bigger companies, or was that just not an option at the time?
I had a boss and or I worked with somebody in Orlando a while ago, and she said that I wanted to build the bus and drive it too. And I don't know if that was supposed to be negative or positive, but that's just how I am.
Right, right, right.
I just I had an opportunity that I needed to take and see it through. I feel like I'm at a stage in my career where I know enough people that I can like reach out for help if I need it. The engineer that I worked with at Niantic was in the same stage of his life, and he was having a baby, and he wanted to give it a shot. So I was like, this. I've met somebody that I really jive with. I love working with. I We have complementary skills. He is a server engineer. He was like the server engineer on Pokemon Go when Pokemon Go launched, and he was like the only one, I think. And then it just worked out. It was just like an opportunity where I was like, I need to do this and take a risk and see it through. Otherwise, I'm not going to have an opportunity like this come around again for probably a while.
I think we're going to shift gears a little bit. I mean, I think obviously I could talk to you for hours about this the industry because of my just because I'm curious and I'm also jealous. But I want to talk about one of the things that you emphatically answered was, "Do you like musicals?" And you said you do indeed like musicals, and that
Mm,
um, if I'm going to do something people aren't supposed to do, but whatever. I'm looking right at the notes, and you
okay.
said Book of Mormon, right? I've seen Book of Mormon. I love it. What? Talk to me a little bit about just your interest in musicals. Does that inform you at all in your career? See, I'm telling you, you answer these questions, and I'm not going to let you off. I mean, we're going to talk about musicals now. So, but what is it about music that you enjoy, and which ones beyond Book of Mormon do you kind of stick out for you?
Um,
But you know what? I'm going to interrupt you and have to interrupt myself. Have you ever seen The Lion King?
I mean, no, not the musical. I haven't.
It's freaking phenomenal. It's a weird
Yeah,
experience. It's like you got animals walking through the freaking aisles, and it's insane. But go on with Book of Mormon.
I'll have to see that. I'll have to see
Yeah,
that. I'm not like a musical freak. Not
yeah,
saying you're a freak, sorry, but I don't identify with musicals, but I do
right.
love Book of Mormon. Wicked was really good. I've seen Cats, obviously. Everybody's seen Cats.
I've never seen Cats actually.
Oh no, you got to see it.
I
It's just an opera about cats. That's just funny. But
think
something I like about
the movie
oh, that,
version, turned me off. The movie version, the cinema version, that was kind of
yes,
weird.
yeah, yeah. It's a little bit creepy.
Yeah, a
Uh,
little bit.
Something I do love about Book of Mormon. I saw it in Orlando for the first time, so that was like
Okay.
delightful. But then I saw it in San Antonio as well, and I forget the names of the creators.
Well,
Who did
Dr.
I?
Phillips here, this one.
Oh no, the South Park guys, the guys who created South Park.
Oh, Trey Parker and Matt Stone.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So I never liked South Park, but I do love them. Like they have
Mhm.
a Baseball or something, other movies. But anyways,
Yeah,
I just
yeah,
really like duos of people. Like there's a ton of duos of people in the history of everything created where like two people is a really good dynamic for like
yeah.
partnerships or funny stuff or creativity because you can bounce ideas off of each other. So I just think it's really interesting to read about them and learn about them. I know that this was about a question about the actual musical, but
No, no, no. See, this is how I trick you. This is how I trick you. You think I'm talking about one thing, but it opens up something else. Because I do want to talk about now. I do want to talk about that because I think that's amazing. It's an amazing observation because um, even and I'll just only because it's what I know. Even myself, like this whole thing I'm building here, um, I have someone else who I'm hoping to bring on as someone to kind of talk back and forth with ideas and who to interview, etc. I imagine you said you worked with hundreds, but you talk about I don't know who Bo is, but you talk about you and Bo right there. There's two people talking to each other getting that communication and just taking in ideas from them, putting your own twist on it, and then bouncing it back to the person and saying, okay, how do we make this the best thing we can do? Talk about that dynamic. I mean, you just backed yourself in a corner of talking about this stuff.
so Bo is my business partner for Bodeville,
Okay.
and that's a
Okay.
mashup of our names.
Okay.
Um, it's just a really good way to have accountability too. Like if you're soloing it, it's hard to stay motivated, but if you have somebody else to keep you accountable, it's really good. And you can be like, "Hey, I have this stupid idea. What do you think of it?" And they'll be like, "Well, I have this other stupid idea. Yes, and to that stupid idea." And
Well,
you
two
just
negatives make a positive, right? The two stupids
yeah,
make it brilliant.
yeah,
Talk. I do want to get deeper into like the whole idea of having a partner because you know solopreneurs have their own challenges, right? But I guarantee the ones who succeed are the ones who find someone else that either has their interests at heart, maybe their friends, or has some sort of skill set that the initial entrepreneur doesn't have. Can you talk about just that part of it where you need complementary skill sets to really build a good team?
yeah. You definitely do. You can't have like two idea people, and you can't have two technical people, but you also need somebody to do the non-technical stuff.
Mm,
So for me and my business partner specifically, engineer, and then I've been an engineer, but I can do
right,
technical stuff, but I prefer to do marketing and artwork. And
right,
we both do a lot of design. So like design is everybody's job.
right.
It's just like the tangible skills that you bring to the table is it's important to be complementary. So for instance, with us, like I'll prototype something.
Mhm.
Let's just say it's a game because that's what I do. I'll prototype a game in Figma or in Unity we were using Godot recently, and then I'll get to a certain spot where it's like I can't prototype it anymore. I've got like some placeholder artwork in there, and then Bo's like, "Cool, I'll plus and it. I'll plus and I'll keep working on it and get it to a spot where you have all of the game systems in there,
Mhm.
so that you can continue iterating." And a lot of the times he'll help me make like a tool, like a spreadsheet. Like I can take a spreadsheet from Excel and then
Right.
import it into Unity so that I can change variables really quickly. And the other way that we do it is like he'll start with a prototype and make something technical, and then I'll create a concept on top of that with artwork or like a new game mechanic or a new layout.
Yeah, man, I love that whole like what you just described is like I think a really ideal setup where you go, for example, like I go to a lot of startup weekend events, right, or hackathons, and a lot of times the best projects you'll see are the ones who have a technical person and like an artist or something like that, right? A lot of many times I've seen startup projects that are good ideas, but one or the other is missing.
Yeah.
So they usually, and again, startup weekend is just for MVP type stuff. So that's not really a detriment because they're not like banking their careers and their livelihoods on it. But I've seen some good. Let's put it this way: I've seen some really good projects not go anywhere after the weekend because
Yeah.
there was no complementary teams. And I really wish some of them would have gone on because I thought they were great ideas, but they just they couldn't see the full vision of it because either it was just the technical side or it was just the design side. They couldn't see like how it could actually work in the long run, and they ended up dropping. Like I said, again, who am I to judge them for? Maybe they were just there as a side project. But I still, have you ever been to startup weekends? I mean, have you ever been to stuff like things like that? And just you mentioned that you were part of some of the things here, a little bit for communities.
Yeah, I went to Indianomicon monthly for a bit,
Yeah,
and
yeah, but that
then we
was
had
more
like
of a meetup. Yeah, it's more of a
yeah,
meetup. Yeah.
yeah meetups. We went to Bart. I don't know if that's still around, that arcade bar.
Not anymore.
Okay, yeah.
But
Just really
you
take that.
give me fond memories though. You give me fond memories by mentioning it.
But to your point about like about just the idea not going anywhere, like execution, I think that my partnership with Bo is really great because we both execute on something. And even with this podcast, like you're going to learn so much through executing on it. Like if I had an
Yeah,
idea for something and you had an idea for something that are the same idea, we would execute them probably very differently.
yeah, yeah.
So you just have to like create something and see where it goes.
Yeah, I think it's funny because funny you mentioned that because I think that's something that's really driving this podcast. Is like I had this idea and I said, you know what, and I've had this idea for a long time, but finally it's like, you know what, you don't put it on the world, it's gonna be you're gonna be pissed when someone else does it. One last thing we got to talk about because I think you did not play along, although you tried to. um, I'm not going to talk about guys we fucked on this
Okay.
too much on this because and that's my first time using the f bomb on this, but that's because of the title, so it's okay. But this is the premise of the podcast is everyone has a podcast, so we must all have our favorites. You said you don't have a favorite. You don't really listen to many. You're more of a reader. So I'm going to flip the script on you a little bit. You mentioned a book called "Off to Be the Wizard," right?
Yes.
And I looked it up, and I thought that's some really cool shit. That's a great premise. Um, talk very briefly, synopsis, very briefly, but also, what it was about. I mean, I imagine the fantasy side of it was really appealing. Not to mention the main character is someone who does what you do, and then kind of applying it to a different world. That's such a cool idea.
Yeah. Okay. So I won't get into the podcast that I mentioned that you just mentioned, but it's a duo of comedian ladies who
Yeah.
are they play off each other really well. So it's a great podcast. It's not
Yeah, I'm
super.
just teasing. If anyone
Yeah.
goes out and checks that podcast out, let me know how it is. I might even listen to it. Like you said, I looked up that premise too, but it was the F bomb I didn't want
Yeah,
to.
I know. It's super funny though. Off to Be the Wizard. The short premise is uh, this person finds a data file that they can edit, and then they try to like get a bunch of money by editing the file because it is the simulation of the real world.
Huh,
Um,
yeah.
and they get caught, and then so they go back in time and they just become like Merlin to Merlin's age. But then they find out that like a ton of other people have literally gone the same trajectory as them. So then they're all just wizards editing this file. So it's
Huh.
like tech sci-fi more than like Merlin stuff.
So if you're trying, basically, if you're Merlin, you're gonna create an illusion. The illusion is just you changing the code.
Yes. So like they levitate by like changing the file or like creating automations that
Ah,
change the
that
file.
sounds great.
Yeah.
Like I
It's
said, I
very
read the synopsis. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I'm gonna have to put that on my list because I think that sounds really cool. I love a good story, but a lot of times a good story starts with a great premise. Sounds like a unique premise as well. So, um, Alexia, time is flown. Time has elapsed very quickly. Is what I'm trying to
It
say.
has flown, yeah.
Um, but I do appreciate you joining us on the show. Once again, it's Alexia Mandeville, Bodeville. Is that how you pronounce your
Bodeville.
company?
Yes.
Bodeville. Keep an eye out for them. You got a game coming. You guys are working on a game, I imagine. And again,
We
it's so funny because we got talking about so much other things, and I don't want to be the jerk that does not mention what you guys are working on. So I'll give you 30 seconds to do a quick plug.
Yes. The plug is Chief Emoji Officer is on iOS and Android. Grift is it's also Chief Emoji Officer is a game about the tech world, so it's very relevant.
Okay.
And then Grift is a doll maker simulation game on iOS and Android as well.
Excellent. This is and listen, the podcast was not made for advertising, but listen, you spent the time with me, and I appreciate you.
I appreciate it.
And the Everybody Has a Podcast where we chat and you listen, and hopefully we all laugh a little bit. So, Amanda, Alexia, thank you, thank you so much. Appreciate you, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.